if in previous game it was divide and rule, today is combine and rule. You don't have to run after each country. You just make everything together with one shot. You kill everyone. So one of the problem is that once you become a NATO member, you are already a NATO member. There are many things that you have to take into your attention. First, you will have foreign military bases. You already have foreign military bases on your territory. This is first sign of your country losing its sovereignty. So if once you have the first military base on your territory, the sovereignty, it's foreign forces on your territory.
Does it mean if something happened in Bulgaria, they are ready to act?
Allow me to explain.
Уважаеми зрители, ето ни във втората част на разговора с Саймън Ципис. Mr. Ципис, the next question that I wrote here is, how is it possible a country like United States to, actually United States is not a member of the European Union, but they are making political and geopolitical and economical and military decisions for the European Union. And perhaps more important is why the European Union are agree with those decisions at the moment. Or actually it's not in the moment. I believe it's over the last perhaps decade.
There is one thing that, one perspective about the NATO, which I think your listeners also need to consider. Besides all the other things, NATO, actually there are many experts who actually believe that NATO in Europe is not against Russia, but NATO in Europe actually is in order to maintain peace in Europe so the Europeans will not fight each other. Mm-hmm. Not the Europeans will fight Russia or Russia fight Europe, but in order for the Europeans not to fight each other inside Europe, because we already had 3 world wars. I consider Napoleonic War as a First World War. The First World War I consider a second, and the second was the Third World War. All 3 occurred in Europe, on the European continent. So this is an interesting perspective that actually NATO is to secure the Europeans against each other, not to secure Europe against Russia. This is one reason. Second reason, because Europe is much closer territorially to Russia, and because the United States considers in 20th century the main rival, the main enemy of United States was the Soviet Union, aka Russia. However, today it's the threat is split between China and Russia from the United States perspective. However, because Russia is part of the Euro-Asian continent and United States not, they must maintain their military and power pressure on the European continent so that today's post-Soviet Russia, in their perspective, will not take over the whole Europe. So, because it's a zero-sum game, again, like in the 20th century. It's a pure realism. Every country which becomes an ally of Russia is one country less for the United States. This is how they view the world. Every additional ally or an agreement which benefits Russia for United States is a defeat in this game. This is called a zero-sum game. This is how they view the world. So the Europe is extremely close. Actually, it's attached to the Russian borders. For Russia to take over Europe, the United States already saw how it happens during the Second World War. So they try to do everything to avoid this happening again. So this is why they must maintain the bigger influence the better. And one of the elements or one of the instruments to maintain American influence on the European continent is through NATO. However, when there are no tension in Europe, they create tension. At the end of 20th century, after 9/11, some politicians, including in NATO and the United States, actually, when they were asked, why do you maintain NATO? Because the Warsaw Pact died with the Soviet Union. But NATO was created to face Warsaw Pact.
So there is no enemy.
They told, no, we must maintain NATO against the war of terrorism. Did you see what happened in New York in 9/11? So now we have a threat to Europe from the terrorist direction. After a few decades, this argument proved to be non-useful. Next argument was that NATO is against Iran. So Iran won't bomb Europe. This argument also, slowly by slowly, after a few decades, because we know that Iran is trying to reach an atomic bomb, a nuclear weapon, to weaponize nuclear energy. The next was very timely, is the conflict, first it was in 2008 between Russia and Georgia, and then the Russian-Ukrainian war began. So now they have a solid argument for the NATO, and it will continue over and over and over and over again. They will maintain NATO in Europe at any price. However, we must not forget the other argument that NATO actually keeps the peace in Europe. Whether it's correct or not, only future can show us. But as long as NATO in Europe, United States of America will have a very significant leverage on European politics. Another element which is very significant is Britain. From one point of view, Britain is part of Europe. From the other, they went out of the European Union, Brexit. After Brexit, it was absolutely clear for me that the British membership in European Union was a trap for all other European countries. Many countries saw that Britain also became a member of the European Union, so they said, look, this union is very strong. Britain is part of our European Union. We are willing to become members as well. But the trap closed behind their backs, and Brexit occurred. Britain went out of European Union and closed the trap. All the other states now members of European Union. Now this European Union played a very crucial role in this conflict between Russia and Ukraine. What Ukraine wanted is to become Europe, a member of European Union. However, I think this was not the main problem for the Russian leadership. The main problem was that automatically, once you become European Union member, you must become a NATO member. There is one exception. Turkey is a NATO member, but not a European Union member. So you can be a NATO member without Europe, but you cannot be a European Union member without NATO. This is a paradoxical situation. So I think the Ukrainian leadership made a grave mistake. In my opinion, the best way for Ukraine was to remain sovereign, neutral, and independent country, which means they are not with Russia nor with NATO. They can trade with anyone they want. They can have open borders. They can have a liberal economy. But this is kind of a non-alignment. But what did I tell you at the beginning? In this 21st century game, nobody will allow you to be non-aligned. You either will be forced to be with the West or with the enemies of the West. The West didn't let Ukraine to maintain status of a non-aligned state. You either with Russia or you with the West. There is no third way. Something that was during the Cold War. Today, the game is much more aggressive. And this is the tragedy. In my opinion, it's a grave tragedy of Ukraine. First was the wrong leadership of Viktor Yanukovych, and then there was a chain of mistakes and wrong leaders in Ukraine, from Yanukovych through Poroshenko to today's Vladimir Zelensky, and they are leading their state, their country to a catastrophic development. However, from my point of view, the best way for Ukraine to avoid this conflictful situation, as I said, is to be one, neutral, second, sovereign, not member of any military political bloc, and third, to be independent, not dependent on Russia, not economically, not military, and not dependent on European Union either. However, the West didn't let Ukraine go. So, answering your question about why United States have so much leverage in Europe. As I told you, Europe is a very crucial territory for United States. Second, the British, in my opinion, the British Empire or British Kingdom is behind all its colonies, including United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. But they cannot, they must keep Europe under their control because they actually bordering with Europe, and they care big time about anything that happens in Europe. And if in past it was, there is a saying that you divide and rule, today you integrate and rule. It's much easier to control Europe once it is in one union. It's very easy to control the whole Europe with one shot.
Yeah, with the centralized laws and
centralized laws, centralized parliament, centralized economic regulations, central bank, central currency. So if in previous game it was divide and rule, today is combine and rule, integrate and rule. It's much easier to rule Europe once it is all combined. You don't have to run after each country. You just make everything together with one shot. You kill everyone. So integrate and rule. This is one of the essential rules of this current modern 21st century game. I think in future we will see such an attempt to integrate states of the Middle East in order for it be easier to control Middle East. They will try to integrate in some kind of a union, Middle East Union, or the union of the Persian Gulf monarchies. And we already saw it a few years ago when Israel became part of the Persian Gulf monarchies, some kind of a union without a name, but there were military drills together, military exercises together with the Persian Gulf states. So we are seeing that a new union is being created in the Middle East. I think the same attempt will be in the near 100 years in Africa and maybe in South America. So there is already an attempt to make AMERO, Mexico, United States, Canada together in a union. It didn't work out very well because Mexico has a lot of problems, including with drug trafficking, human trafficking, and organized crime. But I think in this new game of the 21st century, first, essential point, there is no non-alignment. Second, it's not divide and rule, it's combine and rule. And third, religion takes a great part in this game. Let me give you an example. When Russia sent its troops to Syria, They actually were baptized by the leader of the Russian church before going to Syria. This was on television. In my opinion, it was a mistake because at least don't show it on the media. Because who did the Russian troops went to fight in Syria? Muslims. It doesn't matter whether these were Alawi, Sunni, Shia, they were Muslims. From the Muslim point of view, this was a crusade of the Orthodox Church of Russia against Islam, two different civilizations. This was a very important element. I think it was not considered enough within the Russian leadership before they sent their troops to the Middle East. Second point I would like to make is that did you know that inside the State Department of United States, inside the Department of National Security, there are actually employees who are Muslims, but not only that they are Muslims, they promote the interests of Iran. They are Iranians. This information became public recently, a few days ago, in the light of the war in Gaza, and when President Joe Biden refused to supply Israel with modern weapons, including bombs and rockets, to fight the Hamas militants, and probably expecting war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, and if with Hamas and Hezbollah there is a third potential conflict between Israel and Iran. So Israel must be prepared to the full, and at this focal point, Joe Biden, the President of the United States, refused to supply or stopped supplying the essential weapons to Israel. On this background, many critical opinions appear in the media from the politicians from both sides of parties, the Democrat and Republican. And few of them actually accuse Joe Biden that he knows that inside the State Department there are people actually with a high degree of secret allowance. They actually promote, it's like an Iranian lobby. Inside State Department, they promote foreign policy and interests of Iranian ayatollahs inside State Department of United States, and the government knows about them. They do nothing, and these people actually in permanent contact with the Iranian leadership simultaneously with the war between Iran and Israel. So it's a dual politics, but the point I'm trying to make is that these influential individuals inside the State Department, they are not doing it for money, and they are not doing it for a career. They have career. They don't do it for money because they have enough money. Why do they do that? Because they are Iranians, they are Persian, they are Muslims. So this religion ground on which they act must receive highest attention, because religion plays an essential part in all these conflicts and all this geopolitical game which is now unfolding before our eyes in Europe and in the Middle East.
Okay, but I'm understanding the problem between Christianity and Muslims. I mean, it's absolutely logical. It's over a lot of centuries. But for example, in Ukraine, we can see with the Kievskaya Lavra. Over there was a bigger problem. I mean, right now I believe that they are trying to change the religion in Ukraine from Orthodox to I don't know if other kind of Orthodox or even Catholicism.
You're absolutely right. They are actually trying to replace the religious values of countries which become members of both European Union and the NATO. Allow me to explain. Membership in the European Union has three elements: economical, political, military, or military political, and religious. Behind the Catholicism, Catholic religion, stands the Vatican. He promotes its interests to replace, to transform foreign for it. It's not foreign for you, but for Vatican it's foreign. The Orthodox Christianity, the Slavic Orthodox Christianity, to replace it with Catholic Christianity. One explicit example, as you mentioned, is the attempt to replace, to forbid the Russian churches in Ukraine and to replace it with Catholic churches. I think the same pattern of action will be in all other Orthodox states of the Eastern Europe, I think including Bulgaria. Slowly by slowly, they will try to replace your values with their values. This is what we call a soft power. Slowly by slowly, they will promote. It's a messianic activity. They will promote Catholicism. They will try to build Catholic churches. And slowly by slowly, remember, we are speaking about 100 years. There is enough time to replace the Orthodox religion, Orthodox religious values, traditions and culture with Catholic traditions, culture and values, which are, for most of you, are foreign.
At the moment, yes.
At the moment, yes. So, but this comes together with membership in European Union, membership within NATO, and the religious element which comes together with all this promotion of these values. One of the problem is that once you become a NATO member, you are already a NATO member, there are many things that you have to take into your attention. First, you will have foreign military bases. You already have foreign military bases on your territory. This is first sign of your country losing its sovereignty. So if once you have the first military base on your territory, the sovereignty, it's foreign forces on your territory.
Does it mean if something happened in Bulgaria, they are ready to act?
Allow me to explain. For NATO bases on your territory, this is the first element. The second element is anti-missile defense system, PRO, what is Russians called PRO. Mm-hmm. Anti-missile defense systems, which they are planning to put on your territory. In case a major conflict unfolds between NATO and Russia, from the military point of view, the Russians will have to target these batteries of MIDs, anti-missile defense, in order to be able to make a strike on a much more essential military infrastructure of NATO. But if they have these AMDs on your territory, they can intercept the Russian missiles. So without any connection, whether Russia likes your country or not, they will have, from the military point of view, they will have to target these bases on your territory. Now, this is not a good sign. Nobody wants their territory to be targeted by other country. But once you put your bases and once they put AMDs on these bases, you are potentially open for the first strike in case a major conflict unfolds. The third element, which is highly important,